I mean, I think we just, in general, gave up too many points in the paint. We were kind of letting them get downhill almost at will, and they're either drawing fouls or finishing at the rim, a lot of second chance opportunities. And, especially a team like this, our sort of coming into it, we talked about just, trying to force them to beat us over the top, and we definitely did a good job of it.
From your perspective, you need to describe that sequence late, the Beal three, and then the inbound leading to Westbrook's three.
Yeah, obviously Brad hit a tough shot, and then, just a dumb mistake on my part. I was trying to get the ball out quick and get it to Kevin, and it's one of those things where he was cutting to the rim, and I was kind of throwing the ball where I thought he was going to be going, and I had a timeout. Should have been more cognizant of it and just taking care of the ball. So definitely just a big mistake on my part. Especially down the stretch like that. Those are timely possessions, and even though the defensive effort wasn't great, we still should have won this game. And a lot of it comes down to the timely possessions at the end.
Greg Logan with Newsday.
Joe, obviously we know the defense has been a problem, an ongoing problem for a while. But let's look at the offense for a minute. 147 in OKC, 146 tonight. Both nights without one of your main stars. I mean, what does that say about how good the offense is? And is there, because it's that good, kind of a reliance on it, to a feeling like you don't have to push as hard on defense?
I mean, I think we knew coming into the season, even before we added James, that, we had a lot of offensive weapons, and then you had James, who's easily been one of the best offensive players in the game, the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, to go kind of plug in with the guys that we already have. And, we can score with the best of them. We could easily be sitting here at the end of the year and say we have one of the better offensive teams to play this game. But that being said, the defense has to follow suit too. You can't just always rely on the offense. I guess nights like tonight, are kind of indicative of that.
Alex Schiffer with The Athletic.
Hey, Joe, you guys had that 18-point lead in the first quarter, and obviously by the end of it, they'd essentially chipped away at it completely. Just what started to go wrong for you guys that let them do that?
I think it was, it's a game of runs, first of all. You see tons of runs over the course of the NBA season, and tonight was no different, but we just didn't capitalize, I guess in terms of stalling what they had going. They got the momentum going there in the second quarter, and it's sort of seemed to continue on from that point. And, we were never really able to get back to where we were at energy and momentum-wise in that first quarter.
Malika Andrews with ESPN.
Joe, both Kyrie and Steve have mentioned how they wanted to make sure that you knew that inbound pass, it wasn't, this loss didn't come down to one play. But do you internalize that? Can you say, okay, yeah, this isn't my fault? Or is this something where you're like, yeah, I'm going to beat myself up a little on this one?
Well, I think it's definitely one of those things where obviously the outcome of the game never comes down to one play. And we all know that. But like I mentioned to Grady, there's very timely possessions at the end of the game where you can secure and finalize things. And that was sort of one of those plays where, had I even just taken a timeout, we would have been able to get the ball at half court, been able to get the ball in, or at least, turn it over at half court. It's a lot more difficult for them to get a shot, versus being underneath their own basket. So, that being said, yes, it doesn't come down to one play, but at the same time, I mean, had I not made it, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about the loss.
Christian Winfield with the New York Daily News.
Kind of along that same vein, Joe, had TLC made that layup, the outcome might be a little bit different. So when a guy gets a clean look like that and he just misses it, what's the message to keep him from being himself up and kind of being down on this one?
I mean, it's the same thing. I think you have to kind of hit home on the same sort of sentiment where, it doesn't necessarily come down to one play, especially in that situation. You don't want to put any pressure on somebody to make a play offensively. Although, you could argue we're not gonna make excuses in terms of whether we thought it should have been a call or whatever it might have been, but he shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. You could say the same thing about me, but we both were, and we both didn't just, capitalize on the opportunity.
Last question, Matt Brooks with Nets Daily.
Hey, Joe. Was this opponent just the way they, grabbed off misses and push out in transition? Did you feel like that was one of the keys to why you guys didn't play as well defensively, or is it just a complete lack of focus altogether?
I mean, they're one of the better offensive teams in the NBA. Obviously, they're one of the worst defensive teams, so that's kind of why we have the result that we have. But I mean, they have offensive firepower, especially when Russ plays efficiently like he did tonight. Him and Brad are both capable of having really big nights, which they did, and everybody else, kind of plugs in as well. They have a lot of good offensive players, and just not enough stops on our part. Obviously, a lot of times when you score, what we score tonight, you're probably sitting pretty good and thinking you're going to win the game. But too many defensive miscues, a lot of, separate sort of runs where momentum got on their side. And then you got
8 assists. Let's hear from him post-game with the media and Michael Grady.
Hey, Kyrie, when you have a game with great scores on both sides, you expect a high-scoring affair. That said, though, when you look at the defense, what would you attribute, some of those issues to that you'd like to correct?
I mean, it seems like every game we play, we're battling just some things that the game flow can sometimes bring you, whether it be some calls going your way, whether it be some high-scoring quarters. They scored 48 in the fourth quarter. I don't know if we're going to get many wins if we allow 48 points in any quarter. So, it's a tough night when you're giving up that many points, and it's a tough night when you're not particularly doing the little things that could create some separation, down the stretch. We had that game that should have been ours. So, we just look at ourselves in the mirror and just see where we can correct as individuals and as a group, just especially on the effort. I couldn't guard a stick today. Those guys were just going right around me, and, I was getting frustrated a little bit, but they kept attacking, and that's what good teams do and good scorers do. So.
If you could take us in the locker room, what's the communication like amongst teammates when, again, there are struggles defensively, some miscues down the stretch? There's a lot of veterans in that locker room. What's the communication like as you refocus?
Well, number one is just reminding Joe Harris and TLC that stuff happens, and it's not their fault. That was just a microcosm of what the game was like tonight. We had the lead. We were pretty comfortable. And then down the stretch, we just still got to be hungry until it's zeros on the clock. And as you saw, Washington was very desperate. And we expect them to play well tonight. Anytime the team goes up against us, we expect them to start hitting things that, you got to give respect, but at the same time, it's going against a good Brooklyn Nets team. So we just take this one on the chin and keep it moving.
Greg Logan with Newsday.
Kyrie, 72 points in the paint that you guys gave up. You're undersized a little bit. You lost a lot of size in the trade. Do you think that that's a persistent issue that needs to be addressed somewhere going down the line in this season?
We'll see. Like I said, we have the group that we have in our locker room right now. I'm grateful to be playing every day with them. And, though we'll allow the outsiders say we're undersized, we believe that we should be winning every single game based upon our effort and based on, our offensive firepower. So, obviously the eye test, we're not necessarily passing it in terms of having all the big guys in the league. But like I said, we just got to match other teams' effort. And we've been doing that lately, and, successful road trip. And now we get back home and play against a good Clippers team.
Brian Lewis with the New York Post.
Hey, Kyrie. I mean, you kind of alluded to it, but I mean, obviously when you're up 18 at any point and 5 with 12 seconds left, you would think you would win that game. But do you think that kind of thought process crept in earlier than it should have? Like maybe you guys had it in your brain, okay, we've got this salted away.
Well, I can't speak for everybody in the group, particularly what they're thinking. But I can say that, down the stretch, that's where we really got to make our mark, and we usually do. And tonight, like I said, stuff happens, and we got to take this one on the chin. It's no one's fault. If anything, we individually take our own efforts where we can be better, and then we move forward.
Malika Andrews with ESPN.
Kyrie, are you one, how are you assessing that last sequence? Bradley Beal hitting the three, the inbound pass steal, and then that three from Russell Westbrook. And then secondly, are you looking at that as the culprit of this loss, or was it more of a we shouldn't have been in that position, and you're kind of looking at the breakdowns before that?
Yeah, like I said, it was a microcosm of the night, and I would never put blame on anybody. Not one person can take one play that could dictate the game. We were up by 5, and we lost the game, and that's okay. Like I said, stuff happens, but we cannot continue to make a habit out of late game situations and not being aware of the execution we need down the stretch. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one to bite on the chin because we definitely, like you said, we definitely had the lead down the stretch, and we want to finish that strong, but it's okay.
Thank you.
Christian Winfield with the New York Daily News.
Hey, Kyrie, can you break down that last inbound play from your perspective when you have KD, you got TLC, and can you just describe or go through what your decision-making process was on that?
Well, they doubled on KD from the baseline side and the top side, and I was just trying to use my eyes and